work. I keep extending the intro as I keep going, so hopefully a wider net interests more people. A bit of the goal. Today we're going to be talking about all these topics. It is a water cooler chat, so it's pretty laid back, and anyone is welcome to come up on stage and ask questions, jump into the discussion. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hop into the comments, or if you're watching this on xenon.xyz, we are also streaming there, supporting a local orchestrator and developer on their decentralized app for streaming. So if you want to head over to the beta test for Xenon, head over to xenon.xyz. What we'll do is we'll start with introductions, and we don't have any guest speaker today, but we'll just do a regular water cooler chat. So we'll start with introductions and then jump right into the topics. So I'll start with myself. I'm Titan, been running the Titan node orchestrator since April of 2021. And today's question, my topic is about the Sao Paulo transcoding errors. I don't know if anyone else gets this, but it's a lot of cannot read body errors. Like almost all my transcoders in that area are getting this, and it's just Sao Paulo. So I don't know if it's a broadcaster in Sao Paulo or if it's my node that's causing this. So I'm just kind of curious about those errors. I'm sure I have more topics, but I'll just leave it at that for now. And then I'll move on. So John, would you like to... So John, I don't know how to say that last word, obelisk. Do you want to introduce yourself and a topic or question you might have?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually, so it's going to be kind of like an introduction for what I do at work. And I kind of have actually a question about something I've been thinking about starting in my personal life too, as well, at least in regards to video transcoding. So my name's John. I work for a company called Obelisk Industries, kind of based off the Egyptian obelisk. But it's most of my associates, they kind of come from more of a real estate development background, and they're interested in crypto, but not as familiar. And that's kind of where I came into place and increasing my learning journey. And we had a couple clients, at least, that were kind of interested in the GPU space, right as like kind of shit hit the fan there for a second. And if anything, I've been looking into Livepeer, and it caught my interest. I got them to take like a decent investment, at least in Livepeer, and they let me set up an orchestrator node, and I've been kind of learning the experience since, and honestly perusing this Discord and just learning all the stuff that, as someone that's built computers and messed with video games and stuff for a long time, the lack of knowledge I've had on a lot of this stuff is pretty wild, I would say. But yeah, I originally got my node kind of started, at least looking at Titan's guide on YouTube, which was cool. And then kind of going through that trial and error period, dealing with the layer 2 protocols was also extremely fun and entertaining. Luckily, I had the guys here at least to kind of hold my hand through that process, which was pretty rad. But at least in regards to my question, one of the things I was kind of, at least it's kind of daunting, at least looking at it at first, but I'm, at least outside of like my normal job, I'm a fine artist, and at least kind of looking at like the fine stream capability, or the video stream capabilities of like the lot radio, which, to be honest, I keep on at the office like almost all day, which I like quite a bit. And it's really cool, at least, that it's run on Livepeer. And I've been kind of thinking about, I don't know what the process is, at least of kind of getting something similar like that available. I know Studio has its existence, but I haven't worked with that directly. Fairly familiar with OBS and Streamlabs, but I would be kind of interested, at least possibly, if someone has like a good community or guide or something to reference, at least in regards to kind of, I don't know, creating a website and kind of creating something pretty similar, but more for local artists in my community rather than just like a music station.
Very cool. I like it. In fact, I love it. That's amazing. Great to have you. And I think there'll be some assistance with the Livepeer Studio, or at least just developing in general. I think developing on Livepeer is tricky right now, and so as we go forward, ideally, I think we can make it easier. So, but yeah, that's a great topic, and welcome to the community, John. Great to have you. Pon.
Thank you.
Pon, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Hi guys, I'm Pon. I've been running Pon Node Orchestrator since April. I don't have any topic today, so I'm just going to be listening in.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Papa Bear, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure, I am Papa Bear, and I've been running the solar farm Orchestrator since July of last year. And the topic I have today is, and this kind of goes back to stuff we've talked about in the past, but there are large orchestrators that are not transcoding and winning tickets. So I wanted to talk about if what you guys' feelings are on should we talk about like changing the selection process to maybe eliminate those transcoders from receiving jobs where they can't transcode, so they're not getting tickets and potentially harming the performance of the Livepeer network overall. And then I have some follow-ups on that, but I think the main topic would be non-transcoding orchestrators and what can we do to what can we do about them? Not getting rid of them necessarily, but just how to deal with not sending them work, because if they're not doing the work, it seems like a waste of resources and time and potentially quality. I really, once again, I really made that sound a lot more complicated than I meant. But I'm sure Titan, you'll do a good job of just making that into like a 3-word topic, putting it up for us.
Yeah, I wrote down 2 sentences. Large orchestrators transcoding and winning tickets change selection process, question mark?
Well, they're not transcoding in real time, so they're getting the jobs, but then just basically probably handing them off. But they're getting so many jobs that they're still winning tickets. Does that make sense? Does that make more sense? Like Binance, I saw a topic come up of some Binance is still winning a lot of tickets, but they don't transcode in real time in any region. So technically, I guess they have CPUs that are running, so that the job is probably going to the CPU and then it gets kicked out. I mean, at least that's my assumption of what's going on. But I don't want to take up the whole thing during the introductions, but I'm happy to, I mean, we can chat about it right now if you want.
Okay, I changed it to large orcs not transcoding and winning tickets.
Yeah, not transcoding.
Okay,
I guess
there we
go.
Yeah, that is an interesting topic, and I have some ideas around, or at least opinions around that. So we'll definitely jump into that topic, and I'm sure other people have points of view. So very, very good topic. Thank you for joining us, Papa Bear, as always. Thanks for coming. But we'll definitely get into that. John, a lead encoder, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Yeah, hi, my name is John, the lead encoder. I've been operating since about October last year, Orchestrator, out of North Carolina. And I guess the topic I'd have today would be about ASIC transcoding. Been really, worked on the NetInt support back in June. Was able to get a build working on Windows, but we still haven't been able to get that running on our Linux boxes, or to get a Linux build rather. I spoke to Sundara earlier over the weekend, and we're trying to get together and work on that. But my understanding is maybe he's got a way of building it, but it's not working with the latest version of Livepeer. So anyone's had any experience with NetInt or wants to get together to try to solve that problem, be interested to know if it just is compatible with the older versions and not the newer ones, or what kind of work needs to be done there.
Very good.
I'd be interested to hear what John's got with ASIC encoding as well.
I like it. I like the idea of ASICs, but I'm very concerned about NetInt. So that'll be a great topic to jump into. So
okay.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Elite Encoder. Ryan with NightNode, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic? Ryan, are you with us? Hello, sir? I think he is AFK. I will come back around to him. Alex with Syrinx Node, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
It skipped me.
Ha ha ha, there you are. Yeah, you've been skipped. We'll come back.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm a TPM at Livepeer. I've been running a node for just short of a year now, and I don't have any major topics. I think we're working on what Papa Bear mentioned, but I can't go into too much detail. And I think the direction Papa Bear has presented as his topic is an important area to get some more context on. So I will sort of second Papa Bear's topic in lieu of my own. but eager to see where we get today with this discussion.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us.
Ooh,
Ryan with
top
NightNode.
secret stuff we have to talk. Oh, sorry. I thought we were done with introductions. My bad.
You can totally skip me. I'm in the middle of a meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll introduce Ryan. Ryan with NightNode is this wolf character who lives in the forest. He does transcoding at night and sleeps in the day. He's actually nocturnal, and he howls at night in full moons. So that's
Thanks.
That's
Thank you.
NightNode
That's
for-
exactly how I would have done that one. So appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get back to your. I don't know. Just introduce yourself. Just a quick one.
All right. My name is Ryan. I've been running Transcoder for about a year and a half. No, about a year and 2 months. Yeah, I have no topic for today. I'm just listening. I'm lurking. But yeah, I'm piggybacking on what Papa Bear wanted to do. I like that topic. We're going to stick with that. Good job, Papa.
There we go.
I try.
Okay, if anyone else is in the audience that wants to come up and join us, feel free to raise your hand. I've invited everyone up, but otherwise you can sit back, relax, and listen as well as we go through some of these topics. So, okay, let's start with the topic of the morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. Let's just start with Papa Bear's topic. So, we've got lots of interest around it and opinions and possibly feedback. So, Papa Bear, why don't you go ahead and elaborate on what you're seeing and what you see the concern is.
Okay, so and yeah, now that I'm not trying to like squeeze it into like a single sentence, I hopefully can do a better job of explaining what I was trying to talk about. There are orchestrators, and it doesn't even matter if it's a big one or a small one, but there are orchestrators that are on the network that aren't transcoding in real time. And I guess technically pretty much any orchestrator would be transcoding just by CPU if something comes to them, right? Oh no, I guess you could just be an orchestrator, not have a transcoder flag. Anyways, so there are orchestrators that are not transcoding in real time, and they're never transcoding in real time. It's not even like just sometimes something goes on and they're not in real time. So I'm just wondering if there's something that can be done with the selection process that just takes them out of the active set of transcoding pool to make the selection from, for a couple of reasons. One is to send a stream to someone that can't transcode in real time just doesn't seem to be very an efficient way to deal with this, because then it does have to go to another orchestrator. So you're losing time there. And what was my second reason for that? Well, I guess that would be the main reason for not sending them work. And then I guess, and then subsequently, fees are supposed to be given out for transcoding. So if they're just receiving a lot of jobs, if it's a larger transcoder, they're going to get a bunch of tickets just for receiving a job, whether they complete it or not. I think that's how it works, or I know that. So they're winning tickets when it seems like those tickets should be really kind of more reserved for working transcoders on the network. And then so does that make sense of what way?
Yeah,
what my concern is. Sorry,
we had an issue back when I don't know what happened to Binance. I don't know if they're still on
that's
here
actually,
or not.
you brought it up.
But
I saw there was a discussion about it.
Yeah,
but
like they were
still on
basically
there.
just getting tickets based on the fact that they were so large that they were just, because the way the selection process is weighted, or I don't know, I'm sure it's still weighted that way, is it was like not performance primary, it was stake primary. So then if you're coming in with a massive amount of stake, it's just going to toss a bunch of streams at you, and then it's going to bounce off of them because they can't transcode it, but it's going to give them enough to see whether or not they can or not. And by doing that in such a large volume, it was just dumping tickets into them for basically for failing to do the job, which is just kind of backwards.
So I had a couple just different thoughts on how to or just on what I thought would maybe get around that problem, that issue. One which I don't know enough details about, and I don't know if this is what Alex was alluding to, is I think that Livepeer is working on some kind of new testing that tests capabilities of the orchestrators that jobs go out to. So if that is something that's coming out and we'll address that, then this is kind of a moot topic, but let's assume it's not because we don't know anything official on that. So I was thinking with the way it works currently, and again, this would still take a change, but should slashing start coming back, or should we bring slashing back into this? I know it was originally proposed, and I don't think it was ever actually implemented. Should a transcoder have some sort of penalty, or an orchestrator have some sort of penalty if they are receiving jobs and not transcoding in real time? And I don't know what the threshold would be for a slash and how much it would be, but just I was thinking of that as a possible deterrent for someone turning on the transcoding flag if they're not actually transcoding. And then another way, and again, these would all take some sort of changes to the code, would be, is there, can we do some sort of a test where we actually check to see is a transcoder testing, is an orchestrator capable of transcoding, whether it's a test, even just a segment or two that's sent out on X interval, whether it's an every hour or so, and if you don't transcode, then you're out of the pool for till the next test comes, and then that cycle can repeat. So I guess that's kind of where those are kind of just thoughts I had on the issue, because I personally, hey, it's a permissionless network. I have no problem with if you want to be a staking orchestrator, hey, that's in the rules, fair game. But I don't like seeing it potentially harming the network by sending work to a machine that can't do the job.
But I think I can speak to a few of these things. These are all really good points. There are a few different ways to approach this, and what has been blanched or suggested so far is basically two paths. So long term, there's potential as a result of new information, some from like the benchmarking features you mentioned, Papa Bear, and just having more information on how the network works. Long-term potential protocol improvements, but that's in this case kind of a nuclear option that we'd like to spend a lot of time thinking about before it's done.
Sure.
And then the other path is iteratively and in small ways, kind of changing how we represent bits in Explorer, seeing how people react to that, and moving forward. Because for instance, and this is not something that's been proposed, but it is a strategy. Say we added a layer to ranking that, let's say for now, did not have a huge impact on how streams were being distributed, that ranked a random sample of every orchestrator for how often they can transcode video in real time. So that's a base metric, and then say we went one step farther and said, let's just rank from 0 to 100, parts A and parts B. Parts A, are they transcoding in real time? And then B, relative in like the latency of us giving them a stream and then having it come back in real time, which is another curious metric. How does that fit in? So that, because obviously the first step to a protocol improvement of this, it would have to have some information to base this on. And the slashing conversation is interesting. I can't go too far into it, but you could probably, without too much work, think of some pretty nasty side effects if we leaned too far into a even slightly or barely more aggressive slashing strategy. And so some of these have like really interesting kind of unexpected side effects. Granted, there's an active issue on addressing this. Specifically, Papa Bear, kind of the issue you raised today, which is, they're large established orchestrators who are basically not encoding in real time. And it's curious because as we get more streaming input and there's just more going on, I think a lot of things will go in your favor because it'll then show, why are we having a bunch of streams show up 3 seconds late in this area or in this AV and not this other AZ. And usually the reason for that is someone's getting a ton of streams who's not streaming in real time. So there's a lot kind of in play. I will say that it's an active, it's something people are thinking about and working on. I wouldn't be too surprised if even within the next quarter, there's not really a proposed protocol change, and there may not be a proposed protocol change at all for some time. But I think, fortunately, as we're seeing more just information flow through Livepeer in the form of sessions and streams, I think that people sort of taking an easy ticket will be highlighted as a performance slump if you look at the 100 orchestrators that are present, and there are also like 15 ways you can kind of go about disincentivizing this. And I think the sentiment now is take a slow, like, metered approach and then collect more information when we have to, or definitely do that, and then go from there. But fortunately, Hunter and I have kind of applied some pressure on this, and it's definitely a legitimate concern, even kind of above what I just have purview of. So
And
definitely.
in fairness to me, I was actually looking for something else that, like, 3 minutes before this chat started, I was searching for something that someone had posted, and I just happened to come across this post that I missed. And so this wasn't a well thought out on my part. I didn't put a lot of thought into it.
I mean, it sounded
I
plenty
saw
well
the
thought out.
issue.
No worries.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't obviously like think about all the consequences of things I proposed and things like that, but I'm glad to hear that there's some internal talk about this.
No worries, and I just
Yeah.
mentioned that because like I would understand if the speed that it seems like we're approaching to sort of find some path out of this or through this is being kind of slow, and it even took me thinking about it a while and talking to some other people to be like, oh wow, like that's like for instance, it wouldn't be great if you just said we're going to slash everyone who once a day can't go in real time, and then if you thought about doing that for people who also happen to have large stake, and then like it probably wouldn't benefit anyone if they just started dumping large quantities of LPT. And then in theory with the weight, we'd only have like a window 7 days out, and so yeah, but no worries. I totally understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
Hey,
Yeah,
Alex,
just wanted you to know
actually,
it was a very roughly thought out idea, but it is something that I think that should be looked into, and now that I know that you guys are, I have I have confidence and faith that you guys will
No worries.
come up with
So-
something.
Alex,
Sorry, you head out, Ryan.
a little while ago, well, not a little while ago, like earlier in the year, back in like maybe like January, February, Hunter had come on and he had said that they were actually, and this is kind of piggybacking off of the issue that Papa was talking about, is that they were going to basically redo how payments are being processed and how the selection process is going to be done and everything. And it was supposed to, change up where how to angle it more towards performance over stake, stuff like that. But then we kind of just never heard anything else on there. Is there any way are you familiar with what I'm referring to, and are there any updates on there? Because I don't think we've actually gotten updates on that.
I'm actually not. So I think that was probably because I joined in April. So it was before I joined, but I can definitely dig into it. And if you have, I guess, concrete examples that were on the forum, that would help me. But yeah, I was unaware that there initially was a whole push to be more performance oriented than if I had to guess, and this is a while ago, I would have to assume that there were probably infrastructure aspects that they said, look, like we just have to focus more time on getting some base infrastructure in place to then even facilitate greater performance. And I don't know that. So yeah, I mean, if you have existing examples, let me know, because it would just give me more leverage to sort of press on people to see what happened to that. I'd have to assume it was probably just backlogged because
I mean, it's been like what 10
almost a year,
10 months now,
yeah.
so I don't really remember the exact examples and everything, but I just remember that it was something that Hunter was we were talking about it on and off when he would come to these back then, and so he might be familiar with the conversations that we were having, and I think he said it was something that they were working on. So just looking to see if he remembers, if he can give an update.
I can definitely ask. Do you know if slashing was a part of this, or was it just as you
No.
said, kind of just changing the incentives of the ranking algorithm?
Yeah, yeah, basically how it's choosing to give things to people, right? Like if you're, because it was like, it seemed like majority of it was based upon how much is behind you, as opposed to how well you're doing the job, right? So that was like
Definitely,
a
yeah.
topic of discussion.
I actually have a meeting with Hunter today that I can bring that up in. So thanks for letting me know.
Wonderful.
I actually had no clue. I had read about that in a few scattered forum, like just in my own digging. But yeah, I can definitely raise that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
I want to ask, because I'm just, are we certain that someone like Binance is actually getting the work, and those are just not test stream tickets? Because test streams will hand out tickets regardless of how performant
we
they
were-
are.
For test streams, it would be way too many tickets.
Yeah, like I mean, we were
I
when
think
when
they're
that
at like a
first
quarter
happened.
ETH so far this month, and that wouldn't come from test streams.
Yeah,
And it's not even the amount; it's just more of the principle of. And again, for me, it's like when the jobs are coming in, what is that doing to the network?
But
yeah.
test streams are going to everyone regardless of your performance, and you get all the tickets from the test streams regardless of your performance, right? So
Sure.
you could say that
Yeah.
some of those tickets they're winning is going to be from Livepeer Inc. doing test streams just alone.
yeah, but the thing, the issue is that it's like if it is just test streams, then they're getting a ton of tickets outpaced from what a normal person would get. Like technically, then that would mean that we all have the same exact chance, and we should all be getting tickets first from test streams, right? But it seems like they're getting more than would be normal. If that is just test streams, it makes no sense, right? Yeah, but it's probably more than just test streams because they're getting an abnormal amount.
Question: when you say test streams, are you talking about like the performance test streams that Titan, or are you talking about like
Yeah.
the test streams that of where they're like this they're like I don't know if
Like the
right
49
term is, but,
segment ones
yeah,
and the 91
like,
segment ones.
Yeah,
because
now if it's that, which I didn't actually consider that.
I get those a lot. I was like kind of blown away, actually. I was like, those are coming in very frequently.
Yeah, they're doing. There's a lot going on there, and I think that's probably some of what Alex was alluding to.
Because I mean,
maybe coming up
statistically, if Binance isn't holding a stream, like it's unlikely them to get 0.5 ETH from test streams from Livepeer Inc., but it's also not impossible, right? Like you can get very lucky on those test streams. Like they're 91 and 51 segments long, and they are the highest paying streams, and they come from each area of the world. And I don't know, I think it's possible, unlikely, but because we can't actually see how many minutes they're actually transcoding. Like, are they actually holding the streams that they're not doing in real time? Because you're not supposed to, right?
I mean, I'm gonna guess not. Because I just looked at it before, but there was a link to their just their performance numbers, and I mean their average. I mean, it looked like they were doing like 8 seconds to return a 2-second segment, so that shouldn't hold a stream. I would hope not.
I can't even find them anymore. Are they just an address now, or?
Yeah, they're an address, and that's part of why it kind of slipped through my radar. I just happened to catch that Frank was talking about it with Marco.
What's their stake? I just want to go and get.
It's like 285,000, something in that range.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
291.48.
So yeah,
goes up fast. Yeah.
So their top region is 1.5% for New York City, and they have 1.3 earned. Right, so it's not like, and they're charging one way, by the way. And
Yeah,
it's not.
I
It's not like they're just
well.
like. So it's not like they're just. I think it is more than just a test stream, because that's a lot. I mean, I don't like if that's the case, right? I have like 1.8. Does that mean that 1.3 of mine, or full ETH of my entire fee is is just test stream, I highly doubt that. They're definitely getting more than that. It's not
Okay.
just like a.
I want.
Yeah, I just dropped. Sorry, I just dropped the link of the test streams for their account. You can have a look at it, and it looks bad. We can't even pass the test stream.
Okay, I just want to clear up assumptions because I think a lot of assumptions are being made. Can they be sending streams to themselves? And could this be conflated with people thinking it's coming from the public network?
Well, I haven't seen another orchestrator whose address that I'm not familiar with. I know that like Zuper has a broadcaster that he does a lot of testing with, so I know that address. Obviously, I know the Livepeer address, and I know Xenon. So I haven't seen. There's no other orchestrator. I mean, if one pops up, Brad's got one that sends out some small amounts of tests to him. So I haven't seen another broadcaster that's sending out a significant number of streams. In fact, I can't think of any other orchestrator off the top of my head that I've noticed that's broadcasting. So
all the payments
it's very unlikely.
All the payments are coming from Livepeer Inc.
I
all the winning tickets.
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
All right. Okay. Are we certain though?
Well, I'm just saying, the other orchestrators that are on chain that you can see are sending out very small amounts. So it wouldn't match up like just price wise. Because again, like if Mike's testing, he's usually sending it to himself or like maybe to me if he wants to test a different region or something like that. So
you'd see it on
targeted.
Yeah, on Marco's tool, right? You'd see it if another broadcaster was sending out 0.5 ETH in a month.
Exactly, and that's where I'm like pulling that. That's where I'm going off my memory, but that's where I just looked at that data up is from Marco's tool. So yeah, that's why I don't see another broadcaster.
All right. Okay. Interesting. I'm just trying to test assumptions.
That's the right way to do it.
Yeah. So what we're saying though is if you get a stream and you're not transcoding in real time, does it not dump you after you've submitted a segment that's not real time?
I mean, I believe it does, but I guess the point where at least the assumption I'm making is that they're still getting so many, and I didn't think about like all the internal Livepeer testing that's been going on lately, which is significant. But I was just thinking if this is all just from like initially like, oh, I'm just receiving a stream and then I'm not able to transcode it, it just seemed like a lot of streams that are going there first when and again I'm not as concerned about like, oh, is it fair as far as like, oh, I want that ETH. It's really more about like as a user of the product, I don't want my stream going to someone who I know is going to fail and not be able to transcode it and get that extra delay going to another orchestrator. I'd rather start with one that we know is able to transcode it, or at least like has had a history of being able to transcode it. If they're just not transcoding in real time, I just feel like they should be. Again, I think there should just be like, hey, maybe put a staking flag in, and they're just a staking flag. They're a staker and staking node, and it doesn't consider them for work.
There's a comment in YouTube here from Eric. He says, speaking from ignorance from this matter, can it be done like crypto mining where a few transcoders take the job and the first one to deliver it correctly gets paid and continues with the work? Right? So like kind of like a built-in failover.
Sorry, I tuned out for 1 second. What was that? You said someone sent that question into you?
A good idea.
Yeah, basically, his answer or suggestion was like, why don't you just send out the first segments or multiple segments to multiple transcoders? First one to come back with results that you like continues with the stream. And so,
well, I think just the way Livepeer works, that's taking a lot of the other considerations on how the selection process does work out of it, because it's not just about performance. I mean, stake is important, and there's reasons for that. So that would take that portion of it out, which I'm sure some people would be happy about, but that's not the way that Livepeer works, or is designed to work. So I don't think just that on itself would solve the issue.
Well, there
Someone
you
else
go.
has a comment on that. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on it.
I was
It
entirely
kind
with it,
of,
though.
it kind of sort of works like that, right? I mean, the stream gets sent out. If you don't transcode in real time, it's supposed to go to someone else. So there is that failover in there. It's just there's a lot of other factors as well.
Yeah, it just seems like if you know someone can't do it, why send it to them at all? Because then that's just
Yeah.
one extra fail that you can just eliminate right off the bat if they can't do it. Hey, if they can do it sometimes, then hey, they're in the running. But and again, I'm not trying to like even signal out a particular orchestrator, but there are several that are just really, I mean, they're just really doing it for staking, which that's within the rules of the protocol. So I don't, I can't knock them for that. I just think it shouldn't be. It's almost 2 different roles. So I think there should be some separation in that. My 2 cents on it. I mean, it's pretty unique. I mean, I'm not familiar with any other, crypto project where staking also gets tied into the work that's getting done, and it has it kind of like usually it's aren't they just most nodes just do like staking rewards and things of that nature, or am I just not or I don't ever stake on any other protocol, so actually I guess I don't know what other ones do, but
No,
I
but
think it's kind of unique.
that is the point of stake, though, is that the amount of stake you have is proportionate to the amount of activity on your node, right? Like in proof of stake for blockchains, the more stake you have, the more blocks you get to produce, right? Which means more rewards. And if you miss a block, then you get slashed in some fashion, right?
Yeah, but there's a downside to that in that case, right? We don't have a downside right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we actually don't have a downside for our proof of stake protocol currently. Which is interesting because but the problem is it's much easier to determine whether someone missed a block, or tried to mess with previous blocks. Is it's verifiable and easy to detect. So slashing becomes a very simple process. Whereas video transcoding, I mean, it becomes
That was kind of my point, is that orchestrators have 2 roles, to transcode and then also the staking part of it. So that's, I think, what makes it unique.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely good points. I think one thing that I could mention that would maybe add some context to this. So I can't, unfortunately, like a lot of things, I can't get too specific. But I think if we weigh on one side like a true, I guess, negative response to certain behavior like slashing, and then if you looked at the other side of the card, which would be something like saying, oh, why don't we just make the transcoder list 1,000 people as opposed to 100? That's, you could get towards a similar effect, but very different approach and less specifically applied. Like the nice thing with slashing is you can say, this is a very specific thing we don't want you doing. So like the worst would be, doing fake work, and then like a less bad version of slashing, which is more like the slashing equivalent of a slap on the wrist is, you have a huge stake and you're transcoding on a dual core CPU, which maybe is not what we're really into. I think at a high level, if I could describe the direction that is probably most in flight, or the most people, like if you ask someone at Livepeer, like, what would you think about this? There are other blockchains, I think. Tight note, I think you mentioned this before. It's it's the data layer API blockchain where
The graph.
you can. Yeah, so the graph, thank you. The graph has a really interesting means of adjusting inflation and some other metrics that is meant to be like a session to session or epoch to epoch equalizer that applies slowly to sort of attack this problem without having a slashing mechanism. And I just need to go and look this. Like you guys talking about this jogged my memory of this. But I think in an ideal state, that's kind of what's wanted. And I think it's realistic. And I understand why there'd be a position that's like, well, that's great, but that's kind of maybe too idealistic, or, the sort of perfect situation in the sky that we might never get to. So in terms of framing context or what you would kind of like to see, I guess I'd think of it in that context. And I'm going to dig through the graphs documentation where they talk about this mechanism, and because I need to find it, because otherwise what I just said isn't really that valuable. But that's kind of what I'd say there. But I do think it's very productive to think carefully and kind of deeply on what a slashing mechanism would look like, even outside of, in theory, the slashing that will eventually be in place once fast verification is fully turned on, with making sure honest work is happening. Yeah, definitely agree with both sides of this currently, though.
Yeah, I was just wondering, well, slashing is not the best option because we're gonna start losing delegators. So if you're gonna lose significant amount of stake, we're just gonna be, no, what, I'm out. I'm gonna find somewhere else where there is no slashing. I'm just wondering, can we introduce like a timeouts in areas? Let's say someone failed a test stream in New York, he gets on a timeout for an hour. He failed the second test in New York, double it for 2 hours. He gets no work. So that would be the easiest option, I think, if that's possible.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. I can definitely raise that. I think we might have a similar approach to how we measure some, but yeah, I'm gonna ping some of the people working on this about that to see if we could. That's interesting.
Doesn't that become a centralizing force, because you have to trust the node that is telling you whether you transcode? Isn't this the whole problem to begin with? Like, how do you have to trust someone to tell you whether these people need to go on a timeout or not, right?
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, what's funny is there was briefly a proof of concept that looked at keeping everyone honest by having certain latency measurements to any other node happen from a randomly selected node, which, if you think about it, is in some sense a horrible idea, because then if you were able to figure out when that was happening, you could play favorites with networking conditions. But yeah, I agree that you run into sort of a tragedy of who you trust to be honest with infrastructure and latency generally. And then there's also, to get sort of academic about it, certain people would be, I guess, if you were in a country that had bad internet or bad just infrastructure, then there's a chance you would just be every time like knocked down by that. But yeah, an interesting approach for sure.
Because yeah, the whole thing was, we had this conversation about a year ago where I said, could we include performance based on the selection algorithm? And Yondon basically said, like, yeah, like an oracle. But the problem is, that's where does this oracle get the information from? Like it ends up just being Livepeer determines who gets the work, like Livepeer Inc. And it's like, okay, well, if we make it so that it has to be trustless, then the selection algorithm just becomes really difficult to solve. The only I think the argument was the only way to actually determine who should get the work in a decentralized, trustless way is basically stake weighted, because that's completely unbiased to what someone could manipulate in a way. But yeah,
I mean, I guess it could be done at a broadcaster level, that each broadcaster could have their own set of or some type of testing that they do, and then keeps a local version for them. I mean, assuming that this is as the network grows and it's not mostly coming from Livepeer.
The selection algorithm, back when I joined, it was very clear that the selection algorithm was a last resort. The selection algorithm was never meant to be the first thing to use. It was always like, these are the parameters you should consider when you're a broadcaster. These are the types of things that you should be, configuring. And if you can't find a transcoder based on what your criteria are as a broadcaster, the default would go back to the selection algorithm, which was this catch-all basket, so that someone eventually would try and get your work to you in the best possible way you could figure it out. So the original default selection algorithm, I believe, was basically the first thing was stake weighted, right? It was like, right? Because the whole point was that a broadcaster was supposed to put in all the metrics on what they wanted, what distance is, how big the working pool, all these kinds of things. But no broadcaster has actually implemented any of those rules yet. We still only use the default selection, which, yeah. So
Yeah, it's what I will say is I think there's still potentially a path, because it gets really messy if you look at, and this is an imperfect kind of selection of words for this, but I think if you look at it offensively, so saying, let's give the most weight to the person with the best performance. Like obviously it's harder and more subjective to measure the best, in this case, offensive performance. So a lowest possible latency, and make sure that's accurate and honest, than the defensive aspect of this, which is just saying, if you're not returning work in real time, whether it's your hardware or your something on your end performance wise or network environment wise, that's fine. And then also I should say that an offensive metric or an offensive measuring of this would assume that the resulting metric would be given a greater weight against the total algorithm, like the total selection algorithm, and that something defensive will always have, say, a lesser percentage of weight against stake. So maybe it's an interesting way to think about this as not replace. I mean, and no one suggested replacing stake entirely, but maybe not providing this as a weight against stake in like a 50-50 kind of context. And again, those terms might be kind of confusing, but I think when you think about it, offensively or defensively or active or passive kind of weighting of this, I think personally, and maybe we won't end up here, but I think there's still potentially room for at least saying, hey, look, everything needs to be in real time, or maybe there wouldn't be a slashing behavior, but looking at that and saying that would start to reduce the optimal conditions of profitability, even if you have a significant amount of stake relative to other active orchestrators in the network.
I don't know if you guys just referenced, if you just referenced this when you're saying that, is like at a certain point, like say like you're saying we're going to hand out streams based on your stake, but like at a certain point, like say like you have 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, right? At some point, should it just be like diminishing returns, right? Like at a certain point, you're validated as a person who has a lot of stake behind you. So now like performance should start taking the bigger, like a more important role
That's
in
a
the
good
selection.
point. I like
Right,
that
'cause, like,
idea.
That gets back to the whole, like, how do you even measure performance,
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to find a way to measure that, but like at a certain point, like when do you get validated to be that you are a reliable source, as opposed to saying like, because at that point, then it's you could just, there's going to be people at the top that could be doing nothing, but they have the stake behind them, so now they're going to get it. All right, you know what I mean? Or like they could come in with like a 4 on their score and still get it because they just have more behind them. I mean,
Yeah, there's a term in game theory that has escaped me that sort of gets towards this. But yeah, no, I think that's still, you're right that it's still tough to measure against, like a ground truth there, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think the original problem is that you can't measure performance without centralizing the performance testing.
Yeah.
like I know it'd be like super complicated, and that's why I wasn't saying it, but like some kind of peer verification and I don't know how that would work, but just like basically, like we have a ton of capacity on the network, right? And almost like how you would do like like a checksum hash, or like, you know, whatever it's called, but like basically verifying the hash and making sure that it's accurate, and then you're saying you're good, right? Like how like something like that, but using the peers on your network to do the verification, whether or not they're actually doing the work, but just being like, this is part of the network where if you're going to get work, you're also going to verify work for other people, just making sure that a part of it comes back proper. And that's how you're doing your performance check. I don't know I don't know how that actually
So
works out in
yeah,
reality,
so
but
it's very similar to how a testing works in the Ethereum blockchain, where 128 people attest to which blockhead you all agree is the beginning, and if you are against the majority, you actually get slashed. I believe that's how it works. And so what happens is, you know, you could do it. Every orchestrator sends out a test stream. They share their results, and then what happens is, like, if you have manipulated your results, it's easily identified, and so therefore you will get slashed for not being on the same length as everyone else. But then, yeah, I don't.
I mean,
My best
think about it
attempt.
like this, right? Like, I mean, again, I'm just speaking out into the void, and then you guys can like technologically do it, right? But or that's how it goes in my head. But like, say you were to say, all right, for every test stream that goes out, when it gets assigned, those test streams, or not test stream, but say every stream that gets assigned, we're going to send, you know, 2-3 segments, and say Titan is the one that got assigned to it. We're going to send it out to me, Ben, and for Koonsman, and we're all going to come back, and it should be the same, like, I don't know, file size, bit rate, and whatever. But then if ours is all the same, we're very, very, very similar, and then Titans is way outside the scope, then Titan shouldn't be getting that, and that should, then you can apply, like, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be software based, but then the timeout if you wanted to do something like that. But it's just some kind of mechanism where your peers are validating the work you're doing.
But the validation of what comes back is actually already being done with fast verification. It's just the speed at which it's getting done, which is also subjective and difficult, because what if you're just located in the UK and, you know, someone needs a test stream in Indonesia because that's where they're orchestrating from, right? How do you determine whether that's good performance or not?
And Alex, is fast verification enabled? I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, it is, but I don't believe we actively mark against it. I need to talk to Yandin about this, because it's in Catalyst, like it's in there, but
it's live. Like if you
yeah,
have
like you can use it, like you can.
If your verbosity is up on 6, which mine is, it tells you every segment that comes back, whether it's fast verification, and it has a true or false.
It's definitely a hard thing to tackle, because like in Livepeer's you know, I guess vision is that eventually they want to step back and I guess let the ecosystem, and they can build apps on top of it or whatever, but they don't want to be the ones that actually continue the development in the long term, if I'm not mistaken. But like at some point, like you would, like say you're using Livepeer Studio to broadcast, and that's connecting into the network, then like Livepeer Studio, I guess, could, like, I don't know, is it going to be that every broadcaster builds in their own kind of way to filter out the trash and keep the ones that are worthwhile? And all this is, why are we trying to fix an issue that everybody else should plan for? I don't know.
I like your idea, Ryan.
Go ahead,
sorry,
John.
jump in there. I like your idea, Ryan, with like have some kind of peer-to-peer system for for sharing metrics, like maybe just like even transcode speed or something like that. I know today each orchestrator has their own selection list, that it drops an orchestrator if they're not doing real time. But something kind of like our performance leaderboard that we have today, but almost like a peer-to-peer kind of sharing of that data amongst all the nodes would be a really neat functionality.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm just an ideas guy. So.
Well, that's one thing I've been thinking about for a while too.
Would this problem be solved with economics? Like, right now, the amount of transcoding work we get is so little compared to the amount of staking awards you get that stakers are currently not going after ETH rewards. They're currently just going after LPT rewards. But arguably, you could say, Binance, they're going to cap out at just a few sessions. Yes, they can win a couple sprinkles of ETH here and there. But if the network were to be in full bore, then, Papa Bear would be over there streaming 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 streams, collecting an ETH every couple minutes. And therefore, hey, there's an economic incentive for stake to move for the first time in the history of Livepeer. Stake will then chase the returns, and stake weighted selection now makes more sense.
Yeah, but why would
like-
someone move their stake? Because as of now, the most of the streams already go to the highest stakers, highest whoever has it. And if the economics grow to tenfold, wouldn't that just the tenfold of the streams would just go to the top stakers? How would that change anything?
No, because if it tenfolded, like Binance wouldn't be holding any of those streams.
Yeah, you're talking about, I think, two different things here. One is talking about to orchestrators that aren't actually transcoding in real time, or even transcoding, I guess, or not transcoding in real time. The other one is high stake nodes, because to Jason's point, I think what he's getting at is if you have high stake, your more work is coming in, you're going to add more transcoders to your network and be able to handle more streams. I think that's kind of. I just want to make sure there was a differentiation between nodes that are not able to transcode in real time receiving work versus a high stake node, because they're two separate issues.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because it assumes that a majority of people delegating would be chasing a different kind of return. Like right now, that's kind of long-term, who's the most established, who has the highest stake. That's where confidence comes from. But then, I don't know, I feel like if you were chasing yield in a different way, which was who can scale the fastest, who has the most capacity, then yeah, I think it's not a perfect fix because it assumes everything goes well and everyone starts using it. But
yeah, I mean, that's a very hypothetical sort of solution, just to kind of wait 5 years for it to fix itself. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of that.
Hey, I'm in it for the long run, so.
I mean, I'm in it for the long run too, but I don't deal in hypotheticals.
Yeah, Ben? Well, I'm in it for the longer run, so. Boom.
Alright.
I'm just kidding.
All right. Now I think it's the main issue is just rating the quality of our streaming capabilities as of a network. So basically, the stream needs to jump around till it lands on a decent orchestrator, basically.
I believe the premise of what I was suggesting also absolutely required that if you weren't keeping real time, it bumped off you pretty much immediately. Right, because but I don't know. I don't even know if that's true, by the way, because I've had a transcoder producing sub real time and it was still transcoding. So I'm not very confident that the selection algorithm actually changes after it realizes you're sub real time or post real time.
Yeah, but shouldn't it be doing that right now? So if I don't transcode in real time, it kicks me off and goes to someone else.
Yeah, but that's not what I've observed.
Yeah, that goes to another issue that actually, well, I guess I would like to see better logging that tells you what if you when a stream ends for you, like why did it end? Were you not keeping up in real time, or did the stream actually end from the broadcaster? I think that would be just a huge valuable metric to
Ooh.
have. Just throwing that out, just because I'm seeing that come up a lot where people are like, why are my streams so choppy and this and that? Like, is it, is it a test? Did I not, is it something on my end? But it would be really nice if there was actually some sort of like, oh, stream is over, or,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
totally sidetrack.
Yeah. Did the selection algorithm change off you and you lost it, or did the broadcaster end the stream? That info would be mega helpful. Someone should open a ticket for that. Open an issue for that. Because I don't even know if that would be very hard to do. Because, yeah, be very curious to see. I don't know. I've just observed that I've had a transcoder sub real time or whatever over real time, and they've held on a stream for like 10 more minutes after that, and it was like, okay, what's going on here?
Something's broken if that's the case. I mean,
maybe if we fix that problem, it would fix the Binance problem.
You're sure that it wasn't like a long segment that was coming in, right? What you weren't like expecting it to be a 2-second, but it was like a 10-second segment. Like they weren't sending out 10-second segments, right?
No. I got mine on V6. They were 2-second segments, and we were doing 3-second.
Just making sure.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. Because also it popped up because on my pool dashboard, someone was at a 0.6 real-time ratio, and I was like, oh wow, like this person is clearly ETH mining or something. I don't know what they're doing. They're running it, they're transcoding on a potato, obviously, so like they're not transcoding real time. And I went and looked at the logs, and I was like, wait, how did they even hold the stream? I'm so confused. Like I was like they're sending back 2-second segments in 3 seconds. Like I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And it was like that for a while. So I figure if you fix that problem, you might just inadvertently fix the Binance problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, you probably still don't have that log, but I was gonna say, if you had that log, that sounds like a GitHub thing to post up too. Or if you see it again in the future, keep a little snippet of that.
Well, it's pretty easy. Actually, I could easily test this because I can just set my pool distances really high and then just have people transcode that are just clearly not going to keep real time, and then just see how it goes. But
I mean, if you're willing to do that, great. But that's also putting a lot of I don't even know. That seems like you're doing a lot of work to figure that out, and changing your pool and everything. Yes, but if you're cool with that,
I'm doing a lot of performance testing right now because I want to figure out what is the minimum I need to send back. I've been wrestling with this issue of like, how fast do you need to transcode? Because if I was trying to do the math, like if you send out a 2-second segment, does that not mean you have to give it to the end user in 2 seconds? Like if you're,
that was always my assumption.
Right, because
when can we get Yondon on here for just so we can
I'm gonna get
grill him.
But like no, but like if you send out, if I'm in Los Angeles and I send a stream into Livepeer and someone's watching in Hong Kong, like it has to reach them in 2 seconds. It can't just be transcoded in 2 seconds because it's still got to go through the pipes and get all the way to them. So like
there's that initial delay where it's going to buffer up, and then as long as everything is then real time after that, then you just have that initial delay.
Yeah, but it's real time all the way to the end user though. So if you're transcoding and you're getting it back at exactly real time, then the rest of the pipes to get you to Hong Kong now bring you over real time. So you're it's going to be really choppy on that side of the world.
The 2 seconds it's 2 seconds to return it back to the broadcaster, and then the broadcaster puts it out from there. So like even if you're on Twitch, you might be like 4 or 5 seconds behind But as long as you're returning it to the broadcaster to be continuous, then it's still considered to be smooth and live to the person watching it.
No, but
it's not that it's necessary.
No, but that's what I'm saying though. Like, if you get it back to the broadcaster in 2 seconds, it then takes an extra 200 milliseconds, let's say 0.2 seconds, to get it around the world and over into Hong Kong. Okay. But every time that happens, that buffer of like, say 10 seconds, it's eating away at that every 2 seconds, because in real time, the person is streaming, but every 2 seconds, you're delayed by 0.2. So, isn't it?
They would just be 200 milliseconds behind continually. I mean, it's not additive.
No,
it's
but you have to. No. Okay, but I'm just trying to really think about this. If you're getting a 2-second segment every 2.2 seconds, that's not sustainable.
I mean, but isn't it currently?
In the real time, there might be like a buffer for like 2 seconds. It must be returned within like 75% of that. Like, I don't think it's like exactly 2 seconds, because there might be some like network problems or whatever. Maybe they have like that buffer. Does anyone exactly know if it's exactly 2, or are we just like talking about it?
No, but I'm just talking about real, like, if you just think about it, like, if I am
Titan like point is, I think it's quite okay, because if you're sending 2 and getting it back like 2.2, of course you're behind like 0.2.
Yeah,
even though if it's like even if it's continuous, you are behind by 200 milliseconds every segment. So yeah, that makes sense.
So are all the segments 2-second segments, or are they actually shorter segment or longer segments? Like you're doing 3-second segments.
Yeah, it's variable.
Right, because
the
how
default
does
is 2.
Twitch do it?
No, but
how does YouTube do it?
Regardless of the length of regardless of the length of the segment, like if it's a 1 second segment,
2 parts, because you're talking about to get it back to the broadcaster, and then there's a second part, which is then getting it out to the viewer, whether you go through like a content delivery network, or if you're just going straight from the transcoder, or from the broadcaster. So if there's a second 200 millisecond delay, and it's continually 200 milliseconds, it's the same as the first one being like 2 seconds and still being in real time. Then you have that 200 milliseconds to get the last part, and as long as that stays within 200 milliseconds, they're just going to be 200 milliseconds behind what the actual broadcaster, if they were watching it on their machine, would be. Does that
because
sense?
Think about let's not use 200 let's use exaggerated numbers. Okay. That there's a 10-second segment, but it takes you 20 seconds to get it.
To get it where?
To get it to the end user.
Broadcaster?
Get it to the end user. That means you're only going to get 50% of the video.
Okay, but all right, so I don't really know.
You need to break it into 2 parts. Yeah, but go ahead. I'll let you go.
But then shouldn't the reality be that if you're going to transcode, if you're looking for a 2-second response time, then no segment should be shorter than 2 seconds? Because if you do exactly 2 seconds and it accepts it, then eventually, yes, you'd fall behind. But if you're doing like 2.25, 2.5, 3 seconds at a time, and that's what's actually going out, but you have to respond in 2 seconds, then you're always going to be ahead of the curve. But yeah.
There's 2 parts to it. There's one is the time to get back to the broadcaster, and then from the broadcaster to the viewer. As long as those 2 numbers are, as long as the first number is sub real time, and then the second number is static at like 200 milliseconds, they're just 200 milliseconds behind what, again, if you were watching it locally on the broadcast machine.
No.
I agree with Papa Bear. It's like, because the second part is just sending data basically, and that is like a constant stream of data. And if you have like a constant delay and you keep the connection kind of stable just with a delay, it doesn't add up it only adds up as long as the broadcaster doesn't get the video segments back in real time. Then it adds up.
It's really important that you have to think about it in two parts. You know, like what is the, like if you're not getting it back to the broadcaster in real time or sub real time, let's just call it real time, then you're gonna have problems. You're gonna get you're gonna miss stuff. But once it goes from the broadcaster to the viewer, as long as that time stays the same, that's just what their delay is. It's not like it's 200 milliseconds and then another 200 milliseconds behind, another 200 milliseconds behind. You're just 200 milliseconds behind what it would be if you were to watch it somewhere that was, I mean, there's always going to be a delay from the broadcaster to the end user. They're not seeing it. Everyone's going to see it at a slightly different amount of time. I mean, it's like even if you're watching TV, you know, certain houses are going to see things a little bit before another one just based on where they're located, but it's still smooth picture that, you know, there's no breaking up in it. You really have to think about it in two parts. That last part is the broadcast, or I don't want to say the broadcast part because it's a broadcaster, but the streaming, Jesus, what's the right term? The delivery part. As long as the delivery part stays the same, you're just, that's just how far behind you are, but it doesn't keep getting, like, it doesn't add up. It's not, it doesn't, let's just say it was 1 second, you're 1 second behind. It's not like 1 second and then you're 2 seconds behind, then 3 seconds every second. It's just, it's constant. That amount just stays constant, whatever that delay is.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah,
okay.
That makes sense. Okay. Is that not also true for transcoding? Like, why wouldn't that be true for returning it to the broadcaster? Like, you could say that. Oh, wait.
Well, because then you're falling behind it. If something is 2 seconds and you're taking longer, then it adds up and then you fall behind, or you're not like you'll start to miss things then.
Okay, so it's almost like it. Okay, let's assume that there's a 200 millisecond delay, but the segment is 2 seconds. Let's take transcoding out of it. It's kind of like saying,
let's take transcoding out of it.
Let's say your router, you have a really bad router for some reason, and like for some reason your router like downloads this segment, and it downloads a 2 second segment, but it doesn't send it along till 2.5 seconds. That would be a problem, right?
That would be a problem, yes.
Right, but as long as you send the 2 second segments before the 2 seconds, it will technically be smooth for everyone watching it behind that.
Yes, you're just slightly behind, you know, depending on where, like how far it has to travel to get to the end user. But then that should be constant. Like, and that's why there's some buffering, or not buffer. Yeah, that's why there's always some delay. You know, like, I mean, you're never seeing it exactly as it's happening.
Okay.
I mean, you know, there's a
So the real time to the real time to the broadcaster is the most important thing, because beyond that, it's going to get to the end user when it gets there, maybe slightly delayed more than everyone else, but it'll get there in a smooth fashion.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for this, because I don't know why I thought that the whole time had to get from the streamer to the end user in 2 seconds.
That would start to become an issue if you were trying to do like a video conference call or something like that. But that's not the application right now that we're talking about. You know, because then you're going to start getting some. You know, you're going to have delays and things like that you're going to run into different issues. But if you're just talking about like watching a feed of someone, you're just going to be like, again, that whatever that last delivery time is behind.
Okay.
But like, you know, for real time stuff, it would be, it's not going to keep getting worse, but it's going to be hard to communicate because you're going to be like, let's just say it was a half a second. Someone's going to say something and then you're going to start talking and you don't realize they're talking and you'll start talking over each other. But that's like two-way stuff. So maybe we just leave that out of it for now.
Okay. Sorry, we've gotten way off topic.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize how long it's been.
Sorry, we have, but the nice thing was there wasn't actually many topics. I feel bad that John Obelisk left because I wanted to get his topic. He was a newbie, right? But he's not here anymore.
You failed as a host, Titan. I've always been so impressed with you, and it's all just gone downhill today. Impressed with you.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, let's just do introductions of everyone else that has joined us, and then we'll continue on with the rest of the topics. We got about another 45 minutes here. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Hi, Ben. Already know, running my node since November last year, and no topic today, just listening in.
Very cool. Thank you for joining us. Fort Koonsman, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Yeah, Joey Fort Koonsman node here. No topic today. Been a while since I've been able to join one of these, so let's listen in to see what's going on.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Hey guys, I'm Jason. I'm running Everest Node. I've been running for like over a year now, and my topic would be like the same like topic where you guys are discussing about like slashing, and it's like I'll bring it up once we get to the topic, but it's like what are the incentives like for people, like why would someone want to like send a bad feed because they're hurting themselves? Like what's the incentive for them to send a bad feed? Like we'll discuss on it later, but yeah.
Bad feed. Very good. I have an idea around that, so very good topic. I like it. Thank you for joining us, Jason. Varies, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Hey, I'm running the Racing Numeris Orchestrator since 3.5 years now. And no topic, just listening to those awesome discussions.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. We're going to move on from the big topic of large orcs not transcoding, selection process. I think we've done a pretty good job of covering that. And I think it's a continuing discussion that will probably continue for a while. I want to quickly jump on my topic. Sao Paulo. Are people transcoding on Sao Paulo, and are they getting errors with cannot read body errors? Has anyone seen these?
I don't have a dedicated server there anymore, so those would be mixed in. What is the error you're getting? I can search the machine that is what is it? Cannot read body?
Cannot read body. Yeah, I think I made an issue for it. GitHub. Let me find the link to the issue here. Yeah, it's only my error context. Yeah, timeout or context cancellation while reading body. There's the link to the issue. All my transcoders are getting this issue. I'm getting this issue. It shows up on my standalone O. I have no idea why. And I can't tell if it's a Sao Paulo issue or if it's like my VPS provider issue. So
I haven't actually noticed it, but I have seen a couple other like newer errors kind of pop up. So
this is like a regular error with Sao Paulo. It's every stream is like this, basically. Some are not, but most are.
And you're running like the latest versions of or I guess matching versions for your orchestrator and the transcoder software, because I know with the pool sometimes that gets hard to update and keep all clean. Because I've seen it something which I'm now trying to look up and see if I can find the actual error. But if you are, then that would be a separate issue. I ran into something using 2 different versions where I was getting some weird errors.
Maybe I'm running an older version or something.
Let me ask you this. Are you getting a lot of work in Sao Paulo? Because I've only seen, in the past, I was only seeing test streams come in. Have they actually started putting real work through there?
Just test streams.
Okay.
So, yeah, my test streams are getting errors. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. So I'm wondering if it was Sao Paulo test streamer and people were getting the same errors. But if not, then it must be my end. whatever.
I've seen that error before, but I don't know what it's really related with. Maybe it could be related to like connection failure type of situation, like packets being dropped or corrupted.
Yeah, or like maybe some sort of firewall. Like maybe there's a firewall on my server that's just like not allowing certain data to come by, and then it's just timing out.
Yeah, any kind of network device in between.
Searching logs, I'm not finding anything with that in them. So,
Would one of your transcoders be having issues somehow?
No, it's amongst all my transcoders. Like it's
all
not
your transcoders only in Sao Paulo, right?
yeah. So even if I connect to Sao Paulo from here with good transcoders, I get the same error.
That's weird. Yep. Me and Papa Bear had a Sao Paulo node for a little bit. We never saw any of those errors, but we weren't getting any work, so we closed it down.
Yeah, there's pretty much absolutely no work there. But I found a service provider that was accepting Ethereum for their VPS, so I was like, oh, sweet.
That's cool.
So just comes straight out of there, and yeah, but I can't seem to send back any work, so I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be good if someone else had a Sao Paulo node in here who could see if they're getting the issues as well, because they might be testing things there. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't see any logs for Sao Paulo, so I will keep an eye out.
Right, yeah, we'd still get the errors just on.
Yeah,
like,
that's why I'm
York
just looking
node,
through.
right?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking through, and I'm just not seeing any of those. But I also don't.
Right, because if you got the test stream from Sao Paulo, it surely would have the same error if it was from the broadcaster to everyone.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's got to be it's got to be my VPS.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those errors on my New York node.
Because it doesn't matter where you're transcoding from, you get this error with that node. So because it just says deadline exceeded while reading body. So like it's just like not.
You know what? Let me go to your actual. I just want to see what the format looks like. I'm going to go to the issue because I did see a couple weird errors that not just it's not. I had some errors that I don't remember what they were, but they were just the crazy formatting on them, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And then I just kind of forgot about it. But this is not. I'm looking at your issue now. It's not the same thing. And you made this 6 days ago, and no one's commented on it. I mean, I can keep an eye out for it. I'll make a note of when my test streams come in because I don't think I have a log that's right now going back to it. I can't find anything from Sao Paulo right now, and I'm transcoding. I mean, in real time to there, but again, it's just the test stream, so there's not much data to go on.
Cool. All right. Well, that's fine. I bet you if I just like switch providers or reinstall Ubuntu or download the newest version, it'll probably fix itself. Or like check my firewalls or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But they're connecting and they're receiving the work.
So you're saying, and I see Transcoder and Orchestrator both getting that same error. Yeah. Haven't seen it personally, but doesn't mean I haven't received it and just haven't noticed it because it's not a lot of work coming through. But now that I know that, I will definitely check the next text stream that comes in.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's my only issue.
Sorry, we don't have an answer for you.
I have one of my transcoders here, Eric. He's in chat. He says, I'm in Argentina. I can transcode for New York. Good. So no problem with my connection. Yeah, so he can transcode to New York with the same unit and then transcode to Sao Paulo and get all the errors. So
interesting.
Must be my node.
How bizarre.
Yeah, I gotta go through and do some refurbishing of Sao Paulo. Okay.
That's always fun.
It's only me that's having this problem. Awesome. Great. Thank you. We'll move on to the next topic. Okay, let's Elite Encoder. You talked about ASIC transcoding and NetInt not working on Linux. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
Yeah, so back in June, Ivan had added support to Livepeer for the NetInt transcoders, and I picked up 2 T408 devices and was working with MSys2. I was able to compile using a bit of his help and just walking it through it. Was able to compile a working binary on Windows on a system that's not really optimized. We don't use it for production, but it was just developing. And it worked. The speed wasn't the best. But, since then we've done a lot of research on NetInt, and it seems like the right type of system, well balanced, well configured, would probably do pretty well with NetInt, especially if you had like lots of NetInt transcoders. So I've been trying to get it compiled on Linux, and more recently was able to, in the past few weeks, I've been working on it, and I was able to get NetInt FFmpeg compiled and then transcode test with that, and then even copy over the exact same functions that we did with Windows. They're called the Livepeer signature functions. I don't know if anybody's familiar with those, but I understand they're required. It's part of that verification process. So really important that your build includes that. And so then I was able to actually get NetInt to work. But when I go and try to compile Livepeer with NetInt FFmpeg, referencing it some way with some environment variables, it doesn't pull in either it doesn't pull in FFmpeg, or if it does, it's not really recognizing anything in there. So anyway, I was talking to Sundara about it because there seems to be some interest in the Discord about trying to get this to work. And I don't know if anyone else had been working with it. He's running an old version of it. Maybe it was similar to the version I had. But I don't know if anyone's tried to do that recently, like build off a newer version. Because I was working with a new copy of Livepeer, and now that the latest release is out, I'll be working with that build and kind of starting over. But the idea is to have, really what I'm aiming for is to have like, so for instance, NetInt has a patch file that you run, like a git patch, and it just patches their version of FFmpeg with their modifications. And so it's trying to develop a patch that's related to Livepeer. So you could just have all of that put together in the repo. Maybe something like install ffmpeg netint.sh, today you have install ffmpeg. So yeah, I realize it's probably a little high level and technical, but that's, I don't know exactly the question, but yeah, just trying to see if anyone's had any experience with that. I'm concerned that maybe the latest version isn't really picking up the NetInt flag or something like that.
Yeah, does anyone know anything about this?
No, but I see Sundara is looking for you right as of like a minute ago. So
Oh, great, excellent.
Why maybe we can grab him into the chat.
He's here.
That'd be neat.
Oh, he's here. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
That's what I get for not paying attention to the chat and surfing around the Discord while it's going on. Okay. Well,
That's good timing.
Can you guys hear me fine? I don't have a good mic. I'm just using the phone mic.
Sound
Yeah,
all
you
right?
sound good.
Yeah.
We miss your voice. Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Yeah, regarding NetInt, I got a bit of what John was saying right now. I didn't catch all of it, but I'm surprised it doesn't work, because it's my understanding that Livepeer Inc. is actually using NetInt to do the first round of transcoding themselves. So it's my understanding that they'd probably be running off head in GitHub instead of, like an old release. And regarding the patching of FFmpeg, that, if I recall correctly, I haven't taken a look at it for a while. Patching FFmpeg is actually done through a separate shell script, and which I don't know if they've actually improved on that at all. I should probably take a look at the repo. But that is, I mean, that's sort of my league to sort of incorporate into any sort of automated way. So really, and this is something I brought up with NetInt, and they said, well, look, we got it working. The only issue Livepeer has is the patches to FFmpeg, our patches to FFmpeg, which have been upstream. So further support is from NetInt. So that's where how far I've gone with the whole NetInt situation.
Okay. Yeah, they definitely seem to be able to support it from their side of it, and they have like a demo application, and I was able to compile that part. What type of what version are you running NetInt currently, and if so, what version of Livepeer is it based off of?
I can look. Give me a second to log into that box.
Okay, that'd be interesting as a start. The build that I did on Windows was actually on an old hard drive, so I went in and over the weekend I salvaged that whole entire build folder. So I'm going to try to retrace my steps and see if I can get it to work. But I've been looking at it for a while. What I did have before the latest release was just like I said, there is obviously the patch for NetInt, and then I created a patch for the Livepeer modifications that need to be made. So hopefully it'd be easy for folks to implement. But I think in either case, it's going to be highly dependent on which version you're running, because like the firmware on the NetInt device, and it might also vary by NetInt device, right? So they have a patch file that goes on their version of FFmpeg first, and it's all different and based off of which firmware version and which device you're running. But it would be super cool if that would be something that's turnkey for anyone who wants to get a. I mean, maybe they still have to build Livepeer themselves, but they've got everything in the repository to do it with pretty turnkey. And
I just checked. Unfortunately, it doesn't say it. The Livepeer node version says undefined.
okay, that's pretty common.
No, for sure, this is a really old version because I got this from NetInt like months ago.
Oh, NetInt provided it too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. There's a guy I was working there named Arav, I believe, Barat or something. Yeah, he said he actually had an orchestrator running with Livepeer and NetInt himself, and I tried to help him along, and I think he eventually got out of the game, but I haven't heard from him in a couple months. But maybe it came from him.
Should take up with Livepeer because I know for a fact that Livepeer is Livepeer does two transcodes, right? They do one transcode themselves, and then
That's what I've heard.
yeah. So which is why they wanted to go with something like NetInt because the hardware is just so efficient. So I know for a fact that they definitely moved to using NetInt for their transcoding use themselves. So every minute of video that's been transcoded now is probably being all done by NetInt from the Livepeer side.
Wow.
So
that's even stranger that it wouldn't work then, right?
Yeah, right. Because you think it would just it probably work better than NVIDIA cards because they're doing all their transcodes on that, or at least most of it, I would imagine. So yeah, this is something we need to raise with Livepeer, but I thought we could sort of go see how far both of us have gotten. What are especially because I thought you had the same version from NetInt. I'm surprised they didn't share it with you.
Yeah, I never directly asked them for their version, but I think it might have been a little early on at that time when I was working on it.
Early on. This is when Livepeer was working with NetInt just to get it working. So that's probably why the Livepeer node version says undefined. I've posted the version information in the thread.
Yeah, usually when you build it yourself, I think there's a build flag that sets the version number, and if you don't set that, it'll just say undefined. It looks kind of like a custom build. I know there's also
building Livepeer for exactly that reason, because once I saw that shell script to patch FFmpeg, I said, hey, this is never going to wash in any Linux distro. I don't run Windows. And I was trying to get it to, I was trying to package it for Debian, Ubuntu, and Arch Linux, and I only run Arch Linux. And I was like, there's no way, any of the distro developers are going to accept a shell script to, patch FFmpeg. And when I spoke to Hunter and a few other devs, it seemed like, hey, that shell script just works for us. That's what we're going to go with right now. And they didn't have a clear timeline on when they might sort of streamline that process. And that shell script is it's fun. And when I had to look at it, I said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to touch this. So I actually use the binaries that Livepeer provides, and I package those for Arch Linux, and that's what I run myself. I don't compile Livepeer at all.
Okay, so you're not running NetInt version of Livepeer in production right now, you said?
I am. So what I do is I have a an orchestrator which is in BC, in British Columbia. And what I have there is I make it connect as a transcoder only using the version given to me by NetInt.
Oh, I
And
see.
that it's got a few quirks, but it works.
Yeah, I get what you mean. A lot of times when the version is undefined, it also doesn't have the ability to operate as an orchestrator. It's kind of a weird thing, but I think the chain ID has to be set through those build flags too. So I've seen that before.
The web would try to run the NetInt card with Livepeer as an orchestrator. I should probably give that a go and see how that works out.
I think when we get a clean build together, it will probably work. Yeah, I was curious. So it sounds like you have like a patch FFmpeg script or something too.
I have a patched version of Livepeer.
Okay.
They haven't given me the actual patches, and when I asked them, they said they've upstreamed them, and they just told me to speak with Livepeer. Because I think the understanding was that they said, hey, this is working for Livepeer Inc. in production. So if it's not working for you,
it's definitely going to be possible. I think I'm pretty close to it, but got the new build out the past couple days, so to look at it. There is an FFmpeg in the Livepeer on Livepeer's GitHub. There's an FFmpeg repository, and that's referenced in the install FFmpeg script. So they have their own build. So Livepeer's got their own build of FFmpeg, and then NetInt has their own build, which you have to patch. And so will, I think, end up being like 2 levels of patches. But that's interesting. Yeah, thanks for the info. And if you have some time this evening, be glad to work on it after a while. I'll definitely be looking at it today.
Right after this water cooler chat sounds good to me. And honestly, it sounds to me that Livepeer is running their own version in production to do the first round of transcoding.
Yeah.
And that's not what's being released in spite of having NetInt support, which I find odd.
Yeah, it's like the secret superpower or something.
Well, actually, I don't think so. You would think that, right? Like they're trying to hoard this technology for themselves. But back when this Discord was fairly more open, I mean, it was the only Discord. I believe now there's a separate company Discord. But back when this Discord was private, as in just more open, they actually had a NetInt channel where there were some developers from NetInt and Livepeer that would discuss stuff that went on in there. And I never actually poked my head in there till they actually moved that channel somewhere else to some other Discord server, I think.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because the last round of like big tests that Livepeer were doing, apparently our orchestrators were performing better than their internal ones. So I wonder if they were using NetInt at that time. I'd be really, really curious to see how NetInt performs on a high-performing Linux box. I really hope you guys can get it working. I'm eager to know what the results are.
Yeah, and just to give a little context to what I think is the kind of the secret sauce with that is, at least in the testing that I've done with the manufacturer build of the NetInt FFmpeg, done like test transcoding and stuff. We tried it with one T408, and I think their standard, whatever it was we were running, it was like, said it was like 75% utilization on the card. And then when we added a second card, the same exact stream was like, it wasn't like exact 50%. It actually seems like when you add more and more cards, you get sort of this economy of scale. And it does something internally that it treats it as like one device, if I understand correctly. So you might have 4 NetInt cards, but your transcoding is like one interface to that. But I've seen the implementation that I've been put through was where you specifically say, use NetInt card 0, 1, and 2, or whatever. So I wonder if, maybe even what we have today isn't even the best way to properly implement it. We'll have to do some testing there, but there's something special about having multiple NetInt cards together, I think.
So SLI is making a comeback? Nice.
Something like that. It's all in the PCI lanes, but yeah, and there's another concept sort of called NUMA, or non-uniform memory access. So I understand one of the key requirements is to have a lot of CPU cores and good bandwidth on those lanes.
Yeah, I think you guys are pretty close to the money because these cards use something called PCI bifurcation, which isn't something that sort of desktop motherboard support. That's the sort of things that's reserved for Threadripper CPUs and sort of servers that fit in racks, basically. So, the question I have for you is: do you have a PCI NetInt card, the T408?
Yeah, it's a PCI setup. I wish I'd gone with the U.2s. I would have got a PCI adapter for them, and it could have probably scaled better. I think they use 4 lanes apiece, even though it's a big old 16 card.
Correct. I wanted a U.2 card myself, but my mate who picked it up just forgot. So he picked up the PCI version. I had the other one too, the larger card, which is way better. But that thing runs so hot, I just can't cool it with regular fans, even with an aircon running.
Which one was that?
You also have the big one, like that 432 is the one that has like 4
Yeah,
chips.
I have the T4. Yeah, I have the T40 432, and that runs so hot. I mean, instantly. You don't even have to encode on it. Just boot and just run the the test to see how many streams you can do, and it's smoking. You can fry an egg on it.
Jesus,
that's crazy because you'd think like with that low power consumption. I mean, I realize they're passively cooled, but you'd think like, I mean, they only, what does that thing use, like 32 watts or something like that? Like that's I'm surprised to hear that.
I actually didn't even have the time to calculate the wattage because that thing was getting so hot that I was just scared of burning it. And it's, I didn't want to burn a NetInt card, especially the fancy one. It wasn't so cheap. So I didn't want to burn it. So I spoke to them and they said, well, yeah, it's passively cooled. They're meant to go in a 1U box. And I was like, okay. It's the same deal when I spoke with NVIDIA about the A16s. And I said, because I was showing them some chassis which could fit like 8 of these A16s. And I asked the guys in NVIDIA, and I was lucky enough to get a really senior guy from the dev team on the call. And he said, well, you can fit 8 of these, but the power draw would be so much that even a 4U chassis like this is going to have a hard time cooling it, assuming the power supply could even supply that much power. So it is an issue of trying to shoehorn one of these into a desktop chassis. And not just it just doesn't get enough airflow. I've tried. I mean, I've jimmied it like huge fans up and around it and things like that, and created a monstrosity just to see if I could at least get try and see how many streams it could do at 1080p. But the thing runs so hard, I was just so worried about burning it. I just pulled it out and I just run the smaller one, the T408, which runs okay with a fan at the back. I put a huge fan. I should take a photo of that and show it to you guys. It's a Frankenstein. But
Wow.
it works.
Get you a tornado fan. Those things move some air. What I've heard.
Yeah, because I mean, rack servers have like Delta fans, which are spinning at, and they have like 8 of them, and each one's spinning at like 10,000 RPM because they don't give a crap about.
Yeah, well, you need a head. You need to wear like not earmuffs, whatever. Like you need serious hearing protection if you're going to be running that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a jet engine taking off, and this is my friend's house, and he's married with a wife. I mean, she'll leave him.
Right.
You can be an orchestrator, or you can be married. Take your pick.
Oh, that's great.
Well,
there's days where I could pick either way. No, I'm just kidding.
Is
well,
it
I'm
worth
curious to see what
reaching?
you guys... Sorry, go ahead.
Is it worth reaching out to someone from Livepeer to see like if they can share any more information on what they're running internally?
I don't know how forthcoming they'll be about what they're running internally, but I think we could definitely, speak to them and ask them why NetInt won't just work out of the box, because it should.
Yeah.
I know Ivan is a good resource from development. He's the only person I haven't reached out to about this. The time zones are a little difficult, so he's kind of my last resort. I've got some good notes from the last time I did this. And if last resort, I'll just go back to the last version that I had in June when I built it. But obviously need to update to the latest.
I think
But
the path of least resistance might be to just create an issue on GitHub and get Livepeer to fix it in their next build so that net and cards just work, like
Yeah.
NVIDIA. Instead of asking them how they're implementing it internally, because I think it's pretty clear to us that they're not using the latest version of whatever's being shipped on GitHub, because clearly
Right,
Netin doesn't
yeah.
work for them.
Poor choice of words there. I mean, just like getting it working for us would be nice out of the
Yeah.
box, like you said.
we should create a GitHub issue, and then I mean, I'd like to contribute to development on that. I mean, if it's something the community can help with, definitely if Livepeer can just hand it to us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think if we just show them where it's failing, and I think once they realize that it's probably just them forgetting to pull in the patches to FFmpeg and the public builds for Livepeer that they release. So once they realize, oh, that's what's missing, they'll probably just add it into the next build, and it'll probably just work from the next version.
Yeah, what Ivan told me with the current version, once I got it built, he said once you get it working with NetInt FFmpeg, don't expect it to work with NVIDIA or CPU transcoding. It's just the way that
really?
the way he particularly implemented it. I think it kind of does one or the rest, but I think it's, like I said, more or less related to the FFmpeg build that goes in there, because there's all these different flags that go with it on the NetInt version when you build FFmpeg versus the Livepeer version. And
Which
maybe there's a
goes
better
NVIDIA.
way to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or they could provide some sort of some instructions, I suppose, for us to just be able to patch it ourselves.
That
So
would
the
be
folks that
ideal.
do have net and we can just patch it for the latest release of Livepeer and at least run with that.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely going to be a stumbling block, right? As we go ahead and Livepeer implements more and more features. Because I was seeing something that Papa Bear posted, and I believe they've got NFT gating working and things like that. So.
And the value add I
think-
see too is.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to add, we are kind of, Livepeer as a whole is dependent on NVIDIA, right? I think like one of the best GPUs is 1070s, which are like you can't even, I don't think they make them anymore. You can get them.
No, they don't.
But
several generations old.
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea of having a really great running network, you need to have some manufacturer hardware that's really well supported, and you don't have to like patch your drivers with some hack or whatever. I think it's a really important piece of the roadmap down the road.
Been trying to get my hands on a 4090.
Apparently, the Intel cards did better with AV1 encoding than 4090.
But good luck getting that thing to work with Livepeer right now.
Yeah, well, maybe one day I can dream, right?
You can
Get
dream.
You're gonna have to get one for Sundar and one for John, and let them
Deal. All right.
Let them figure out how to make it work, and then
send you guys the cards and you can figure it out.
Has anyone got an A16?
No, but at this point, the L16 I think replaces it and does AV1, so that A16 isn't as appealing as it used to be. And I think the other thing with that,
I haven't even seen the L16.
I actually only caught it the other day by chance. I was just happened to pull up the NVIDIA Matrix thing, and I was like, "What the hell is this thing here?" And I was like, "Oh, this has the new I forgot the chipset name. Has the new chipset in it." No, so I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, it's got A16. I'm sorry, A16. It's got AV1 encoding on it." But I'm curious to see what comes out on the lower end in the 40 series, because when I was researching I think it was the A16. That's the one that's got the four. It's like basically kind of like four cards into one, right? Is that the one?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that.
I think it's basically got like four actual like NVINCs in it, and and I think it's actually the same one that's in the 3050. So it's a lot cheaper to buy four. I mean, you have other issues because you're talking four cards versus one, but now that you're also talking about what the heat requirements were and cooling requirements for the A16. So I think it's much cheaper to buy four 3050s than it is to buy an A16. So let's
absolutely.
Possibly something to consider is if the I have no idea what the roadmap's looking like for the 4050, but or even if 4060 if the when again that's been announced yet, but but the you know, those new NVIDIA cards definitely look interesting because they're back to, you know, 2 encoders now for the on their cards. Of course, they need to be patched and all that fun stuff. But
I'm just waiting for that 4050 series card. They're
that's
estimating
that's what I was saying,
$300 brand new.
Is that what it is? Is that what they're like?
That's what people are. There's a question mark beside it, but it's like.
Oh right, yeah.
It's like,
Do we know if it's going to have the same encoders and decoders as like the 4070 and 80?
It's going to
I mean,
have
all the
it's
previous
going to have the 80
generations
one.
have. Yeah, all previous generations have kind of had the same layout. Oh no, I guess not. That's not true. I don't know if it'll have the duals. Probably not actually, especially if it's $300.
We only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to quickly jump on the last topic that we want to cover, which is Jason talking about slashing and incentives for sending back bad streams. Jason, do you want to explain a little bit about your topic?
Yeah, like I was a bit late to the like conversation when you guys were talking about it. I was just thinking like first, like why would someone like knowingly send a bad like transcoding back, because they're like shooting themselves in the foot. Like they're not actually benefiting that much. Like they're not like, if they send the, let's say the normal transcoding, if they just send like whatever is coming back, like the right transcoding, they're just getting whatever you get paid. But if they send a bad one first, like if the active verification is on, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, you sent the wrong verification, so you're gonna be kicked out of the like the transcoding. So first, they're not getting the transcoding job anymore, and like of course they're not gonna get like the next pooling transcoding, I guess, like if they get kicked out of the current pool. So like I was thinking like, why would someone send like a bad transcoding, and like why do we have to implement like a slashing into that? Like I was just like thinking the other day, and you guys were talking about it like on the chat a while ago, so I was just like,
yeah, so I had a bit of an idea around this. Like, chances are someone's sending back bad transcoded data. Like let's assume it's not actual transcoded data of the stream that's coming in. Let's assume that it's just like a completely different video file, right? So that could just be a compromised server, and so instead of sending back a stream